Hello humans, my name is Dale Kingsmill and we're doing another D&D video. And again, I'm setting a timer because I was gonna try it without the timer, but honestly, I don't trust myself to not spiral into like, oh, but I'm missing all the information. So we're doing the timer again. So I think I mentioned it before, I ended up spontaneously running a D&D game for my family, which ended up being separated over 2 different nights. What had actually happened was my mother came into the living room and said, hey, do people want to play some board games or something tonight? And I had spent the last 2 days totally too easily distracted by trying to work out how to pitch a D&D game to my family. I had been specifically drawing up a stack of like 15 different character sheets and working through and preparing them all so that I could just have pre-made characters that I knew people might be interested, specifically angled towards stuff I knew my family might like. And I'd made all these characters and I had been prepping in some form or another an adventure module called, I think it's Hollow's Last Hope, which is a Pathfinder module that I had to sort of fiddle with to make it work. And so since I'd just been putting all this energy into it, I thought, you know, take your chances when you get them, and I said, hey, I could run D&D for you if you'd like. Now Mum, OG back in the day, was given one of the original D&D games, like the booklet, by a friend of hers, and she'd always wanted to play it but had never actually gotten to play. You know, it's one of those things where it's all like, here's a stack of numbers that we're just throwing at you and it's really confusing, and if you don't have someone who already knows how to play, it's an intimidating thing to jump into. And so that was a thing that she'd told me years ago that just sat in my head and really worried me, that my mum had always wanted to play D&D and had the D&D like stuff but had never gotten to play. So this was the thing that I really wanted to do, and I think that my family would like playing together. So I ended up, my mum, my dad, and my sister Shannon, I handed them this stack of 15 character sheets. I should really find them and tell you what they are. This is my D&D, this is my DM binder. Ooh, all the secrets, all the magic, wow. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna break things. Alright, here are all the character sheets that I drew up. The way that I set these up, I did all the stats and stuff, and I said when choosing them, don't worry about the numbers if you don't know what the numbers mean, just look at what I've written up the top. That'll explain kind of the basic premise of the character, and you can just choose whichever one appeals to you. So I've got a gladiatorial champion, half-orc fighter, a rookie magician, half-orc wizard, knight of the ruby order, tiefling paladin. Look, they don't know about Matt Colville or Matt Mercer, it's fine, I can get away with it. Former bandit, half-elf barbarian, crime family spy, halfling rogue, I like that one. First-time explorer, halfling druid, a field surgeon, dragonborn cleric, elven army infantry soldier, elf fighter, court mage, dwarf sorcerer, that'd be cool too. A minor noble elf sorcerer, self-appointed forest guardian, gnome ranger, a traveling storyteller, tiefling bard. That one actually really appeals to me. Is anyone surprised? And then the 3 that these particular family members ended up playing with, an acolyte of Pelor dragonborn monk, which my sister chose, who she named Nasashi. A reclusive woodsman, human ranger, which my dad named Ford, because Ford Ranger, there's always one who goes with the pun. There always is. And my mother went for the disgraced scholar human warlock with a Fey pact, and named them Norelagon, which I think might be a combination of Norel and Aragon. So those were the character sheets that I made, and the characters that my mother, my dad, and my sister chose to play with. The plot of Hollow's Last Hope is that this town, Falcon's Hollow, is ridden with a plague, and so you are sort of asked by the town apothecary to go and find these obscure ingredients in the deep, dark, scary woods near the town. And there were a lot of elements I really, really liked and that made it a great sort of first level adventure module to use, but also there was a bunch of stuff that was just really sort of, there was no coherency to a lot of it. It was kind of, it was an adventure that was designed for exploration and combat, where I knew going into it, my mum said, is this a game where you can talk? I just want a game where you can talk over things. Like you're playing cards, you can talk while you play. I want a game where you can talk. And I said, no worries. Dungeons and Dragons is a game where you get to talk. especially with a charisma score as high as hers. And so I knew that Mum wasn't going to be super into the combat, especially the sort of tactical combat on a grid, so I had to kind of tweak a lot of the elements of the game for that. Then on top of that, I wanted to give more of a reason, like more of an incentive to go after the ingredients. So in the actual module, the idea is you go, you're in the town, there's a plague, so you ask around, you find out that the apothecary has been helping as much as she can. You go there and she's like, there's nothing we can do more than what I'm doing. Oh wait, and she kind of remembers that there's this page in her grandmother's old recipe book that does talk about a cure for this kind of an illness, but it mentions ingredients that she's never heard of, or ones that she can't think of many places you'd get them nearby. And so you're kind of thrown into the woods, these deadly woods, looking for ingredients that might not exist for a cure that might not work. And I wanted to give more of a reason to actually go into the woods for that. So what I did, I tweaked it a little bit. I added a cousin of the apothecary who also knew about the grandmother's book, and I had him go off to look for the ingredients in the forest. And he took a couple friends with him so that there was an extra reason for why you should go, because these people haven't been seen in days and maybe you should go and help them. I should mention, by the way, that the first roll of the game and my father's first roll ever was a natural 20. There was one of the ingredients was called elder tree beard or something along those lines. It was a moss that grew on the oldest tree in the forest, and he was a ranger and he said, can I roll to see if I know what that is? Even though the apothecary didn't know. And I was thinking, it's pretty rare, you'd have to roll pretty high, but go for it. And he rolled a natural 20, and in perfect my father's style, Ford said, oh, no, I know what that is. I didn't realize that you could find it by looking for the oldest tree in the forest. See, I just always knew what the oldest tree in the forest was because it was the one with that moss on it. So that was very dad. Beautiful moment, lovely moment in the game. As they headed into the woods, I did have them roll for random encounters for the day's worth of travel through the deadly forest and for the night that they spent on watch. But mostly I wanted to keep that to a minimum. I didn't want it to be too random. So one of the few random encounters they had was they encountered a bunch of drunken hunters in the forest who kind of told them that there were these little lizardy guys running around, which was because rather than in the adventure, I think the first thing that you're meant to run into is like an orc trapper or something like that. And I just... there were like wolves and wargs and orcs and kobolds and snake things and like so many different things that I ended up just kind of consolidating them all and making most of the encounters kobold based. So after meeting these hunters, getting a little bit of information, the group arrive at the river in the middle of the forest, and Nasashi starts doing some investigating, trying to work out whether this river is contaminated as well, because she knows that this mold that has been making everyone sick was found in one of the water sources for the town. As she's doing that, they all fail a perception check, and the kobolds roll a nat 20 on their stealth and get a surprise round as Nasashi is swept up into a net trap. Oh no, it's not enough time! And so they fight the kobolds who had set that trap. Ooh, there's something in my pocket that just made a clatter noise. We had some great little combat moments. I think a really nice moment for me was when Ford had been up in the tree trying to cut Nasashi down from the trap, and then the kobolds came out and attacked, and he said he was going to pull out his longbow and shoot them, and I said, ooh, you're balanced on a branch, that's going to be pretty difficult, you might get disadvantage if you do that. And he said, well, that's all I can do. And I said, no, ignore the sheet where it says what your weapons are and it says what your skills are. Ignore all that, just tell me what you would do in that moment as a character, and I'll tell you how you can achieve that. And so he said that instead he would take out his short swords, he would cut Nasashi down, and he would drop to the ground ready to fight the kobolds. And he rolled totally well enough to do that, and it happened. It was a nice thing to be able to see that sort of switch of gears from kind of board game tactical mode to, oh wait, no, this is a role play. And while Nasashi and Ford were fighting the kobolds, Norelagon stood back, and I loved the fact that my mum looked at her sheet and noticed that she had, as part of her pact with the Fae, she could either like frighten or charm a specific number of creatures within range, which she did, and they got just like one round's worth of talking to the kobolds, because Nasashi was a dragonborn and could speak Draconic, she got to talk to the kobolds and find out just a little bit more information, and they found out that the kobolds have this home base. I know I'm still talking, I'm not meant to be still talking, but I'll get to the end of the first of the 2 sessions. How about that? We'll do it that way. After one kobold was killed and the other run off into the woods as Nasashi roared in its face and made an intimidate check to send it scattering, they all decided to keep moving along the river in the dark until about midnight-ish, at which point they made camp. Nasashi noticed some glow mold on a rock nearby with another random encounter roll, which, with a combination of Norelagon's high intelligence roll, which told them about the mold, and Ford's high nature check in order to collect the mold off the rock, they managed to get a jar full of it that would continue glowing and light up dark areas for the next 3 days. The next day, early in the morning, they made it to the witch's hut. Now, this is the witch who gave the information to the apothecary's grandmother in exchange for the grandmother's eyesight. So Norelagon spends the entire session going, I'm not giving anyone my eyes, I'm not giving anyone my eyes, and Nasashi keeps reminding her, you sold your soul to a fairy. So they make it to this clearing in which the witch is supposed to live. All the trees are sort of leaning away for it as if trying to escape, even though they're frozen in place. There's sort of a semicircle of 6 scarecrows that sit around the hut. Nasashi stays hidden in the tree line. Ford goes around the back of the hut to kind of just be there just in case, as Norelagon plans on what her deception is going to be as she marches up to the door of this witch's hut to try to convince the witch to give them the, what's it called, rat's tail root, pickled rat's tail root. And as she reaches the door, she sees there's no handle, but when she knocks on it, it lights up with words on the door. This was basically, there was meant to be more combat that happened in the witch's hut again, but knowing that my mother wasn't as super interested in the combat, I switched it to a riddle, and this was actually probably my proudest DM moment so far. Just before the game began, as I was kind of scrambling to grab things and run this surprise session that I hadn't realized I was going to be running, I thought, I'm gonna need a riddle instead. What's my riddle gonna be? And this is what I used. Because here's the thing, is that you can Google like themed riddles or whatever, but you either end up with jokes. Why does everyone continue to label jokes as riddles? Stop it, they're different. I know that maybe they used to be the same thing. They're not anymore. That's not what we mean when we type riddle. You know that's not what we mean. Or you end up with riddles that everyone kind of knows the answer to by now. But this is something that my nana gave to me years ago, like early high school, probably about 9 or 10 years ago. But it's a lateral thinking game, and what it has, I'm dropping everything. And what it has are a stack of these cards of varying difficulties that just have lateral thinking puzzles on them that serve as riddles. So out of this like full deck, this is a very small part of it, I just pulled out a card which ended up being this one and plunking it down in front of Norelagon and saying, a riddle appears on the door. And so for the next 5-10 minutes, she ended up with occasional metagaming from Nasashi and Ford as well, but it was fine because it was banter. If only one of these statements is true, how many sisters have I got? And it's got 3 statements. I've got 10 or more sisters, I've got less than 10 sisters, I've got at least 1 sister. If you want to try and solve it, you better pause the video now until you do, because the answer is none. That's the only true answer. And so it took a little while, it was a little brain bendy, but she got the answer because it's a lateral thinking game for like 12-year-olds. So it's like challenging, but not impossible. And I'm in love with it now because I've always wondered, how do you make like a riddle style puzzle for a D&D game that you know is gonna be solved, but that also isn't like crazy easy. It's hard to get that middle ground, and I think this is the perfect solution. I'm so pleased with myself. So Norelagon did solve the riddle, and the door creaked open and she was met with darkness, and that's where we ended the first session. So there you go, another DM video for y'all, because we didn't get through the whole double session description in this one video. I'm sure there'll be another one coming pretty soon. You know how YouTube works. If you want to show that you appreciated the video, you can find the ways to do that. I know you can. I believe in you. Subscribing might be one of them. Hey, subscribe. Apart from that, I do believe that that is it. I'm done. Email this to your grandma and maybe play a game of D&D with her. It's not that hard. She'll have a good time. You'll have a good time. Everyone's gonna have a good time. Family D&D. I will see you some other time.